Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just talk a little bit about how we go about designing a table in our databases. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the decisions that we have to go through when we're designing a table, and also be able to design and build a simple table. Okay, so when we're talking about databases, we are talking about a language called SQL. Most databases that we deal with will use a language called SQL. There are other databases that use a different language, but by far the most common is SQL. And SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's been around since the 1970s. It's very well used, very well understood. And it allows us to, what we call programmatically, create CRUD database systems. So it is allowing us to write programs where we can create, read, update and delete data in a database. So we've got this application that needs to store and update data. It's going to use SQL to communicate with that database. It's usually just a string. So when we put together our commands, all we're going to do is to write a string in Python and then tell Python, take this string and pass it to the database. And then the database will receive that string and understand how to manipulate it, how to execute it. Okay. So a quick reminder, how a database is organized. Well, they're basically a collection of tables where we have each table. So all of this here is a table. This table is called teachers. We have each row of the table is a record for a single teacher. A column relates to a field, which is a piece of information that all teachers will have, and a fact is a field on a record. Okay, so those are just as a brief reminder. So what we need to understand is, how do we go about putting together this table? Well, the first thing we need to think about is, what are we going to call our table? Okay, so by convention, it's a noun, so teacher, pupils, cars, etc., but it's a plural. So because our database table is going to hold more than one teacher, it's teachers. Okay, so whenever you design your table, the first thing you should bear in mind is that it should be a plural noun. Whatever it is you're describing, in the plural form. Okay? The next thing we need to think about is, well, what will the table hold? Well, we need to think about the field names that the table is going to hold, and we need to think about the data types that the field is going to hold. And we've talked about data types in Python. Databases have exactly the same concept of a data type. So they have numbers, text, dates, times, booleans, etc., etc. Okay? And then a little bit later on, we'll talk about how we're going to link these tables together. But that's for another lesson. So all we're going to talk about to begin with is the naming and the designing of the fields. So the way it works is this. We start off with our plan. So this is a rough draft of the data that we want to capture in our database, and then we can turn this plan into a table design. So each field here, you see each of these columns here, has now become a row on our field design. So the first name column, first name field here, is now a row on our table design. And the reason it's become a row is because now we can start giving you a little bit more information about the field name, sorry, about the first name field. So we can talk about what its data type is going to be. And in this case, we can see that the first name's data type is text. Okay. Once we've put together the table design, the next thing we can do is to use that table design to create our SQL command. This is an example SQL command here. So here is our SQL command, and you can see that what we've got is this first bit here creates a table Well, that's going to tell the database what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a table, and we wanted to create a table called teachers. Okay. Then we want to have open bracket and a closed bracket at the back in there, and then in the middle of the brackets we put each of the field names and its data type. So first name text, family name text, senior or prep text, and subject text. Okay, so text is the data type. There are other data types that we can use, as I said. So text is what we would call a string in Python. If we only want to have a single character, so we could use a character data type, real or float, date, time. So these are the standard kind of data types. Now, not every database supports every data type, but these are pretty common that you would find in any database. These are pretty much shared amongst them all. Okay, so like I said, what we've covered then is the decisions you need to think about when you're designing your table, which is the name and the fields, and then for each field, what are you going to call the field and what its data type is going to be. And then, how do you convert that table design into a SQL command that we will then turn and pass that back to our database. Okay? So I think that's enough for now, and if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.